So, as you saw in this last picture, it's kind of hard to tell, but the way the EOC is set up, it's two big rooms, and then on one side of the room you have these pods here. One whole side of the room is the operations section, that's the red, and you'll have a person or two people sitting in each of those seats, and they'll be doing basically whatever you see that you kind of see their functions on there. I'm not going to get into everybody's functions, and some of them are self-explanatory, but the operations section is responsible for, we have what we call the policy group or the management. That's the white boxes up at the top. They give the policy direction. They say, hey, this is exactly what we need to do. They're kind of the big wigs, and they make the tough decisions. So if they make the right decision, they get all the credit. If they make the bad decision, they have to take all the blame. So that's that group. They give their direction to the operations section. The operations section is responsible for implementing their direction. The operations section coordinates with the planning section. They say, hey, we need to do this. Well, how can we do it? The planning section comes up with a plan for them, for the operations section then to implement it. The info and intelligence section, which is the light blue there, they're responsible for gathering all the intel from the field and finding out exactly what's going on and relaying that information back to planning and ops so that they can formulate the proper plan. So info and intel is monitoring. They have people out in the field observers, liaisons that are coordinating with fire and law to get that information, relay that information back to them, so we have an understanding, situational awareness of what's going on throughout the county. The logistics section is just what it is. They just get everything. They find, hey, I need 10 trucks. Where are you guys going to get 10 trucks from? Well, we know UPS or whoever they get 10 trucks from, they'll go get it. And then the finance section, that's finance. They just make sure that they have all the money to provide everything. Yes, ma'am.
So I assume we fit under the logistics for the volunteer coordinator?
That's correct. You guys will come in there. Our volunteer coordinator would find out exactly what the needs are out there from the info intel. Info intel will say, hey, there's a tent city set up in Rancho Bernardo somewhere. There's a tent city, and we need to make sure those people have food and water. They refuse to go to a shelter and stuff like that. Well, then we would look out to a volunteer group or a faith-based group and say, hey, is there anybody willing to provide food and water to this tent city? They're refusing to go to a shelter. They want to be out. There was an earthquake. They don't want to be inside of a building. They'd rather be out in an open area and just wait till everything is safe, but they are going to need food and water. Could anybody provide that? And then that's where volunteers would come in and see if they can get out there and provide those resources to that group.
Would the county sanction a tent city as a shelter type of area?
I'm not exactly sure on that. People are allowed to do whatever they want. We do open the shelters and they're welcome to go there, but if they set up where they're at and it's safe for them, we're not going to go in and say you guys can't be here.
But I just wondered, you wouldn't man?
No. So I kind of went over this stuff already, the EOC overview about the policy group, operations section, planning and logistics. And if you want, I can take your name and information and I can send you this presentation if you like, but I'm kind of running short on time, so I want to make sure that I get through everything. So here again is what I was talking about, the baby brother, big brother, dad, grandpa. So these are the response organizational levels. Again, if it can't be handled at the local level, if the city of Carlsbad can't handle their incident, they'll reach out to the operational area. Operational area is the county. That's the entire county. We're responsible for that. So they reach out to us. If they can't reach out to us, they can't get anything from us, we go regional. That is, we go through the state to go to our regional partners, which would be the surrounding counties, or we're called Southern Region in the state's mind. So that'd be San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange, and Los Angeles counties. And then we go to the entire state. We pull resources from Northern California and pull those down if necessary. And then what's not on here is the feds. After the state, then it goes to the federal level. So a little bit about the way the response works. Back in May, so we had the Bernardo fire, which was the first fire, began on that Tuesday. It was kind of the single incident before the rest of the Poinsettia and the Cocos fires broke out. So basically the fire began, OES is notified of that incident. CAL FIRE and the County Fire Authority are the people who are responsible for the wildland fires. They do that type of response, and then they partner or they have mutual aid agreements with the local fire agencies if such an incident were to happen. At OES, our office, we have somebody on call 24/7. They're the staff duty officer. It's a big yellow phone, and it's always on, it always rings, and they have to answer it at any time of day, any time of night. So luckily I'm not on right now, and I don't think I was on during that incident. But during that, so the fire happens, fire breaks out, and the fireman looks out the fire and he says, "Oh man, it looks like it's going to be a big one. We're not going to be able to put this out." They get on the phone immediately. They call us. We begin pulling out all those people in that you saw on that organizational chart. We begin pulling all those people in. We're saying, "Look, it's looking like it's going to be a bad incident." At that point, we start getting in touch with the American Red Cross, start getting in touch with 211. We get in touch with the American Red Cross because, one, they're going to need to start setting up shelters. Two, they're going to need to start setting up at temporary evacuation points, maybe get a canteen out there. If we've evacuated some people from their neighborhood, but we don't have a shelter set up, well, they may need food, water, and snacks at a temporary location until we can get them to a shelter. So we partner with the Red Cross to get them out to those sites, both shelters and temporary evacuation points. We get on the phone with 211 because a lot of people in the county know that 211 has the emergency information. Well, 211 doesn't know what to say if we don't give it to them, so we have to give them the correct information. So the fire begins, and basically it says, based on the situation received, it has to meet the activation criteria that we talked about earlier, and then the EOC was activated at a level 1 for this incident. It seemed like it was going to get out of hand at first, but we got word that everything was going to be okay. So that was just a quick level 1 activation. It was, as you see there, 2 p.m. we deactivated back to duty officer status at 8 p.m. So at that point, the EOC shuts down, everything's okay. Then the city, Bernardo Fire, that's the city of San Diego, they're responsible for conducting all those recovery activities and things like that. The county then backs off, we have no part in that. Then, next day, that's when the Poinsettia and Cocos fires erupted. So the fire begins 10:30 a.m. We get that call, and they said, "Oh yeah, this is going to be another big one." Okay, well, we're activated to a level 2, and then pretty much immediately that transition right into a level 3. Multiple city EOCs activated, just like we have our war room. Red Cross has their war room. All of the cities have a war room as well, maybe a little bit on a smaller scale, but they have their war room for their jurisdiction. Water District EOCs activated, Transportation EOCs. EOC is Emergency Operations Center, aka War Room. All right. So all those districts or all those agencies, cities, jurisdictions, they activated their EOC. And then the coordination part of it is just City of Carlsbad. They had the ability to do the Alert San Diego call out because they were so busy with other activities for that Poinsettia fire, they called down to our EOC and said, "Hey, can you initiate an Alert San Diego and call all of these residents and tell them evacuation point is here, shelter is here, etc." So we're partnering with them. We're taking care of some of their responsibilities because they were busy doing other things. We coordinate with the sheriff to conduct evacuations for those jurisdictions and establish temporary evacuation points. We have a liaison over at SDG&E, and they're basically monitoring it. Hey, the fire's running this way. We have a lot of power lines in that area. We may want to think about de-energizing those lines so that responders are safe in those areas. Fires aren't burning the power poles and things like that. So we coordinate with them in that respect. IMT that's an incident management team. That's basically more emergency managers that come in from out of town and basically can help us manage the incident. Again, American Red Cross establishes shelters, and we get with the Office of Ed to think about closing schools and such. Any questions on that, how the coordination takes place? Okay. So then recovery efforts, again, they have to begin as soon as possible. That picture there's a picture of a local assistance center. A local assistance center is, let's say somebody's home got burned down, and basically they have nothing, and then they would have to go and get a building permit to rebuild. They have to get a bunch of stuff in order to basically reconstruct their home. Well, at a local assistance center, if that person had to go and rebuild their home basically from start to finish, they would have to go down to the county to get a building permit. They'd have to go over to SEG&E to get whatever they need to get turned on. They have to go to the next person over here, the next person over there. Well, a local assistance center brings all of those resources together, so it's a one-stop shop for that person. Makes it a lot easier for them to just walk around the room and get everything they need than driving to multiple locations throughout the county. Second bullet I have here is some volunteer organizations and faith-based groups have stepped up right away to help fire victims rebuild or remove debris. Basically, in this last fire, through the VOAD, we had a number of volunteer groups, basically our recovery coordinator and our volunteer coordinator in our EOC, aka War Room. They were in touch with those groups and were able to get them out to those areas right away and start conducting debris removal and start rebuilding right away so that it wouldn't take a long time.